So, we have officially made it to the Sonic the Hedgehog marathon, and if you stuck with me this far already, well, chances are you know what we are in for. For this marathon, I'll be looking at the mainline classic Sonic titles. Mega Man wasn't the only blue mascot hero that ignited my passion for video games. As I was hooked to my Nintendo Entertainment System early on, another juggernaut would quickly enter the home gaming market. Sega would introduce us to the powerful new Sega Master System. At this time, I was far too young to afford a Master System, and as a kid, you had to be choosy with your game selection. The only chance I would score a new game console would be for Christmas or my birthday, and I had to have a really good reason for needing one. I would unfortunately miss out on the Master System early on, but as the Sega Genesis began to take shape, it was only a matter of time before I would have a valid reason for my parents to cave in and buy me a new system. Something special was brewing over at Sega. Now, for those new to this channel, I'll say here now that I'm not some big news journalist or someone that has a long list of credentials attached to my name. I'm merely a guy that's passionate about many of the classics, and a vast majority of my reviews center around my personal experiences with many of my favorite franchises. A big reason for doing these reviews is to share my story with you all and connecting with others learning of their experiences. I guess you can call me an enthusiast for the sake of things. With that said, I can't think of a franchise that has a more diverse fan base than those of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. To stake my claims here within the community, I'm here to give my own unique twist on my journey with the Sonic series. Sonic the Hedgehog, where do I even begin? The blue blur has had such an integral impact on my childhood. He's undoubtedly shaped the way I perceive gaming, and next to the blue bomber, made up a vast majority of my gaming adolescence. If my memory serves me correctly, I vaguely remember my earliest interactions with Sonic the Hedgehog series being shown off at those early Sears department store kiosks. You know, those fun demo units that seem to pop up at your favorite local department chain and fast food joint. Some of my personal favorites coming out of the late 90s McDonald's play areas. I fondly remember McDonald's eventually getting the N64 kiosk and thinking it was pretty sweet seeing a 4-player kiosk with Mario Party on full display right next to a giant ball pit covered in hamburger grease and ketchup stains. Totally sanitary, right? Something about Sonic the Hedgehog just captivated me the moment he streaked across that Sears store display. It was love at first sight, if you believe in that sort of thing. I don't know how to articulate it, and I can't quite put my finger on it. It might have been my affinity for the color blue, or my favorite hero Mega Man donning the blue attire. It might even have been his cool and carefree personality combined with his over-the-top spiky hedgehog exterior. In a sense, he really just had the total package, right down to his sweet high-speed footwear. Whatever it was, the Hedgehog had my attention. The momentum-based platforming physics drew me into the gameplay, and at this time, I was sitting on a stack of amazing platformers back home. I had all the great Disney afternoon releases like DuckTales and Rescue Rangers. I had my Contras that gave me the high-speed thrills of running gunning through a tropical island filled with aliens at every turn, and I had a plumber that needed no introduction in Super Mario Bros. Yet something about Sonic just hit differently, finding a way to time your jumps perfectly to generate the perfect amount of speed to take that plunge into a high-speed loop and clear the obstacles ahead. You slowly become a master mathematician as you uncover the formula for the perfect trajectory, clearing each hazard. There's some true skill involved when finding those perfect angles to jump and maneuver your way through to execute a flawless high-speed run throughout the zones ahead. Sonic 1 is really a masterclass of platforming, and it shows by design. Sonic the Hedgehog took off so quickly he really swept the nation through amazing marketing and campaign ads that really made you resonate with the character. Sonic felt like the cool new kid on the block that ate chili dogs and dished out witty remarks to all his friends and foes. He was way past cool, and quite literally, from his fresh new gameplay right down to his sweet blend of 90s inspired pop culture that surrounded him. Comic books and cartoons would follow shortly after, and as the blue streak swept the nation, I was there every step of the way to soak it in. I would begin to buy and subscribe to the monthly Archie comics early on. My very first issue of the Archie comic was issue 15, the early issues closely following the adventures of the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, and would slowly turn into its own unique universe that became widely expanded on, giving us some of the most iconic characters of my youth. Waking up before school for the various Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon series made me find the will to go to class some days. The cartoon evolved just as quickly as our Hedgehog would, and we would go on to see many more renditions of the blue blur. I just couldn't get enough Sonic at this time. I would eventually eventually get my very first Genesis in the winter of '91 along with Sonic the Hedgehog, and I played it religiously that entire year. The original Sonic the Hedgehog is easily overshadowed today by a masterclass of high-speed sequels like Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 that define the series going forward, yet Sonic 1 was the prototype that would go on to give birth to true supersonic speed. At its roots, Sonic 1 is a solid platformer that places emphasis on momentum-based physics to differentiate its gameplay while also molding our hero's story and legacy throughout the many worlds depicted within, giving you a true challenge that I think is criminally underrated compared to the rest of the series. As much as Sonic is known for his many immersive zones designed around high-speed traps that keep you in a continuous state of fluid movement, Sonic 1 in my opinion is a true tale of a lone hedgehog embarking on a grand adventure to rescue his forest friends, painted across a perfectly grounded platforming experience. There is nothing in the series quite like Sonic 1, and I like to reflect on my own personal experiences while embarking on a journey through the creation of a blue hedgehog's earliest adventures. Throughout the 1980s, Sega was known for their home ports of many of their infamous arcade classics. However, looking for a stronger home market share, Sega went to work throughout the late 80s designing their own mascot character to rival Nintendo's Super Mario. Wait, they had a mascot character, you say? Well, sorta. That is, if you consider that to be Alex Kidd. He was an early pioneer of Sega's, with much of his legacy taking place across the Master System. The guy was plastered all over the console, yet Sega was looking for something a bit edgier, something a bit more Sega. And with the wheels in motion, an in-house competition would be kicked off to create the next superstar mascot to rival the competitor. Sega wanted something fresh and new, a character as infamous as Mickey Mouse, and they would do just that, stretching the imagination across many various character concepts. At a moment in time, Sega had pitched an idea for a rabbit that would grab a hold and manipulate various objects with his long flowing ears. This would inevitably be too hard to design for early Genesis hardware, and from there, they would move forward. Naoto Oshima would eventually come up with an idea for an armadillo and a hedgehog that could roll into a ball. After taking his work with him on a trip to New York, he would find himself showing off his new character rough sketches on a walk throughout Central Park, where he would ask locals their opinions on his character designs and taking a poll on their favorites. The results would be unanimous, and Sonic was a local favorite. Sonic was originally teal in color, and from there quickly changed to a light shade of blue, ultimately changing again to a darker shade to stand out overall, with the idea to match Sega's branding. Oshima would take inspiration from the likes of Felix the Cat and Mickey Mouse to give us our rude and crude chili dog eating design of choice in the blue blur. His high-speed origins were inspired by Michael Jackson's boots on the cover of his 7th chart-topping studio album, Bad. The infamous red and white color scheme was inspired by Santa Claus, who Oshima considered to be the most famous character in the world. Sonic's iconic spiky bladed exterior was exaggerated in design to grant him a far sleeker look, and the team settled for the name Sonic to represent his high-speed nature. Sega would look to programmer Yuji Naka, who had impressed the team with his earlier work on the Phantasy Star series and Ghouls and Ghosts. Desiring something a tad faster, the game was designed to be played quickly, which is where Naka placed a great deal of his efforts. The project began primarily with Oshima and Naka, yet as their work flourished, many others would join, culminating in 2 programmers, 2 sound engineers, and 3 designers in total. Hirokazu Yasuhara would come on board to essentially supervise Oshima and Naka while further exploring level design. His fast expertise would be integral in discovering a way to make Sonic playable with simply one button, having Sonic do the bulk of his damage merely by jumping. As a newly assembled trio carried on together, they would come up with the idea for Sonic to roll into a ball, and with the gameplay cemented, created the fastest high-speed character in a video game to date. Sonic Team went above and beyond for the debut of Sonic 1, so much so the team commissioned Masato Nakamura, songwriter of the J-pop band Dreams Come True. Nakamura would go on to state, "The hardest part of the project was working with limited number of sounds that could play concurrently, limited altogether to 4, and would additionally add that his lack of knowledge of music on computers made it near impossible." Nakamura would go on to write the soundtrack concurrently with the Dreams Come True album, Million Kisses. So with the blueprint in motion, what would be the fate of this new Sonic the Hedgehog? Our story opens on South Island, well known for its vast and plentiful resources. The lands are rich with various rare mineral sources, yet one source in particular, the Chaos Emeralds, are the true treasures buried within. These 6 gemstones wield enough raw energy to not only make the island's inhabitants thrive, but harness enough power to aid in the scientific advancements and technological resources. Although these Chaos Emeralds are plentiful energy sources, means of locating them are vastly unknown. This primarily due to the island being in constant motion with the Chaos Emeralds existing within the natural distortions of the island itself. Yet if the wrong individual was capable of accessing and harnessing these power sources, the consequences may be catastrophic. A scientist that has come to great power, known as Dr. Robotnik in some parts, yet globally known as Eggman, learns of these powerful emeralds and decides to open up shop on the beautiful South Island. He begins to construct a plan to not only extract the emeralds buried within the island, but to use their power to further build his own Robotropolis. He begins to roll out his plan by capturing the island's inhabitants and turning them into robotic servants in the form of badniks to build a base of operations, the infamous Scrap Brain. It is here that Eggman begins to execute his plan to uncover the whereabouts of the Chaos Emeralds and extract their power, laying waste to the island altogether by doing so. Sonic, currently residing in the lush green terrains of Green Hill, gets wind of Eggman's latest plans and speeds off through the various zones of South Island, rescuing his friends trapped inside Robotnik's newly designed terror devices and collecting the Chaos Emeralds on a journey to the far-off reaches of Scrap Brain. Now, I have played through Sonic 1 on countless occasions, and up until this review, most recently completed it on the channel as a full playthrough on my Model 1 Genesis. The video is still up for viewing today. However, for this review, I thought it'd be a fun idea to purchase the Sonic Origins collection and do a playthrough on Classic mode. The gameplay is primarily the same, centering around Sonic's core arsenal, run and jumping his way through various momentum-based speed-defying zones composed of the essentials, springs, slopes, and vertical loops that defines the blueprint for a success story going forward. You attack your enemies by performing the Supersonic Spin Attack, which is this game's version of a glorified Mario Goomba Stomp. Sonic will curl into a ball and begin to spin his body at maximum speeds, destroying his enemies and various obstacles upon contact. This can be attempted by jumping or rolling and will need to be executed with precision to time your attacks perfectly. What's added to this collection is the inclusion of the Spin Dash, which, if I'm not mistaken, was incorporated into the release of Sonic 1 way back on the Sonic Gems collection during the Sonic's Wonder Years on the Sega Saturn. The Spin Dash adds an extra element of mystery at times, helping you build extra momentum for those tough to reach areas and to do some additional means of damage to badniks. It's super satisfying, and something so small as the inclusion of the Spin Dash truly grants Sonic 1 an extra layer of depth that goes a long way here. Now again, I'm not going to go into heavy detail on the core gameplay. This is Sonic the Hedgehog after all, and there are some excellent videos out there that truly take a deep dive into the mechanics of the series. For a brief refresher in Sonic 101, you essentially travel across a wide array of beautifully designed zones covered in robotic badniks at every turn, destroying your mechanized opponents in efforts to free the inhabitants of South Island. You do this all while avoiding the various stage tropes such as bottomless pits, spike beds, and various stage set pieces placed appropriately to crush our blue hedgehog. You can't have a Sonic game without rings, just as Mario can't have an adventure without coins. In the Sonic universe, however, rings have a variety of uses throughout your journey. For starters, rings are Sonic's primary source of protection scattered throughout the various zones. The more you nab, the higher your chances are for survival. In the event Sonic collides with an enemy or dangerous obstacle, if you make the slightest contact with either, your rings go flying faster than an armed robbery, yet as long as you manage to hold on to just one of these rings, you manage to maintain immunity in the event you come into contact with any of these again. Rings, however, won't save you in the event you go free falling off the stage, or you get crushed by the stage set pieces, so tread lightly. Easier said than done, right? You also are rewarded by holding onto your rings. If you manage to collect 100 rings at any time in your travels, you receive an extra life, and if you manage to hold on to 50 or more as you reach the stage goalpost of Acts 1 and 2 of any zones, you can jump into a giant ring that teleports you to this game's special stages. It's deep inside these special chaos fields Sonic attempts to locate the 6 Chaos Emeralds as he navigates his way through a rotating labyrinth filled with bumpers and rotating levers that will bounce Sonic all over the labyrinth. As a kid, I was always in awe by these stages. They drew me in with their hypnotic colors and sounds, as you visually are met with shape-shifting backgrounds depicted throughout. The Sonic series will go on to give us various creative takes on the special stages, yet these early works still hold up and bring their own unique challenge to the series. They can still get pretty tough throughout, especially if you don't know the layout, and the goals can really sneak up on you, ending your run. Fail a few of these special stages and you won't have a chance to unlock the true ending beginning of the game, which is really where the ultimate challenge of Sonic series lies. Nonetheless, the special stages of Sonic 1 were always something I looked forward to, and they have always kept me on edge as I slowly broke through the various crystalline barriers to uncover the Chaos Emeralds buried within. Sonic has a variety of additional support items you can acquire by smashing some fun CRT-inspired TVs that house his power-ups. If that doesn't scream 90s, right? Well, you can discover shields that give you an additional one-time layer of protection in the event you come in contact with badniks, temporary invincibility that can aid you in sticky situations, and Sonic speed boots that I always get a kick out of using, but in a game like Sonic 1 may do you more harm than good. Sonic 1 is composed of 6 zones with 3 acts each, followed by an endgame final zone that pits you up against the evil Eggman in a climactic final showdown. Each zone is beautifully designed with unique visuals and artistic style that is dripping in originality. You'll discover unique enemies and obstacles scattered throughout, and at the end of each zone's third and final act, you'll have a run-in with Dr. Eggman, who will give you a taste of his latest and not so greatest inventions designed to stop our Hedgehog dead in his tracks. The true debate that sets Sonic 1 apart from the core trilogy of initial games is the stages themselves. Many people initially love playing through the first 3 acts of Green Hill Zone. It's here Sonic's speed is presented on full display. These stages are designed to perfection and complements his arsenal of core mechanics as he makes his way across high-speed slopes and death-defying drops, specifically designed to build the momentum needed to project Sonic ahead into the various segments, consisting of varying degrees of loops and winding segments that launch you into a frenzy. It's designed to teach you the core physics of the game while also leading you through the proper beginner steps to platform your way to victory. In a sense, Green Hill Zone feels like a glorified demo in its own right, yet it's when you finish with Green Hill Zone that the difficulty quickly ramps up. Gone is the happy-go-lucky, sunny-filled fields of Sonic's home turf. What we begin to journey into going forward are the after effects that South Island has endured since the arrival of Eggman. Gone are the beautiful mountain ranges covered in lush green terrains. Gone is the variety of wildlife enriched with the joys of creation. Here we are met with the zones completely compromised that are slowly becoming roboticized in time. The integrity of the island zones withered away by the ever-changing effects Eggman's new construction has had on the island's ecosystem. We go from a lush tropic terrain filled with winding corkscrews to mechanized raceways from hell that at its very core has evolved our adventure into a hardcore platformer filled with death pits, spike beds, and lava-filled corridors eager to erupt from within. Sonic 1 gives you the formula from the very start, and from there on lets you go to sink or swim, and with that I welcome the challenge. Marble Zone is a true test of patience. You'll discover an ancient city as you break through the slabs of stone floors, revealing enriched ruins buried within. The island's ancient architectural roots can be seen slowly withered away, crumbling from the pressure of the lava-filled floors. You'll take a lift across stone tablets, floating across the submerged lava-filled corridors. The tectonic plates buried below the island's sea floors shifts, and the lava will begin to spew up, bringing you to new heights. Hidden paths reveal new ways to travel, etched throughout the forgotten cities. Springyard Zone is plastered with chaotic beginner traps that can sandwich you between shifting platforms, and if you manage to get ahead of yourself, you will be launched into painful wrecking balls and oncoming hazards. You'll travel through a high-profile city covered in Eggman technologies who has taken over the streets and truly run amok across the city. The badniks here are some of the most challenging you'll encounter, covered head to toe in spikes and mechanized gadgets that will make quick work of our blue hedgehog. The Robotnik fight can easily give you a sense of impending doom as he begins to take out the floor beneath you brick by brick. Labyrinth Zone is the make or break point for many. It's in my opinion the stage that really divides the Sonic fanbase and truly is the moment of your playthrough you most likely will decide if you're finishing this game or not. This stage is a beautifully designed water temple that is literally flooded with traps and puzzles that can mentally cripple you your first time playing. The stage can really set you off and most likely will inflict some serious PTSD on you directly after hearing the haunting sounds of Sonic drowning deep within the temple floors. This primarily due to the sheer amount of time given until Sonic's oxygen is completely depleted as he travels the flooded ruins searching for oxygen sources. As he goes deeper into the aquatic tomb, these oxygen sources become fewer and farther between. You constantly stay in a state of high anxiety as the walls around you feel as if they are closing in as you search for higher grounds across the rotating conveyor belts that help manage your way through the stone sectors. The Robotnik fight at the end of Act 3 is a true gauntlet that test your reflexes every step of the way, pitting you against some of the most obnoxious enemy hazards and traps as you climb your way out of the flooded ruins. I don't know if Robotnik is actually trying to kill you here or if he's trying to find a way out himself. Starlight Zone is my standout zone of the game and one of my personal favorites in the entire franchise. The stage and music combined is quite majestic and captures the real feel of traveling through the city streets in the midnight hours. The layout is simple yet elegant in presentation as you travel through the windy city streets. Bridges will collapse, granting you alternate routes of travel, all while strategically placed stage props come in various forms, such as these tiny fans to push you every which way, making you rethink your route to travel. It almost feels like a reward after the hell you go through in Labyrinth Zone moments earlier. The Act 3 boss encounter is also classic, playing a game of seesaw with Robotnik as you counterattack his barrage of death balls, launching them straight up his hard-boiled robo cheeks, sending him packing back to his metallic refuge. Scrap Brain Zone is the ultimate test, a stage full of mechanized madness, the product of Eggman's master plan in full effect, a stage full of some of the most pivotal platforming segments that will punish you if you think twice. As you move forward through the mechanical workshop, you'll see the horrors on full display as saw blades ascend and descend down upon you. Torches rise out of the ground and electrical fields cover the lands. As the many inhabitants of South Island have been roboticized into sheer death bots, you're put on a clinic freeing your friends along the way. Being mindful as trapdoors open beneath you and winding elevators send you to and from the various factory assembly lines that lay across the lands. As you make your way into the final chapter, Scrap Brain Zone 3 greets you to a chemical wasteland that is essentially this game's Labyrinth Zone 4. This stage is by far the greatest challenge of the game, and you're traveling the ruins below with little to no oxygen bubbles stretched across some tight underwater segments filled to the brim with death traps. As you make your way into the heart of Scrap Brain, you will have a final face-off with Eggman as you go into battle ringless in a final showdown. A room filled with magnetic spheres that home in on our Hedgehog as the mechanized gear system attempts to crush our hero each step of the way. As you weave through the dual gear system, you will dismantle the internal structure blow by blow until the heart of Eggman's base begins to crumble. As Eggman makes his escape to his Egg Mobile, Sonic gives chase, landing a fatal blow to Eggman's ship as he crashes and burns down into the depths below of the imploding Scrap Brain. As you make your escape, Sonic will eventually make his way back to Green Hill with all of his rescued friends. It is here that the time is right to release the Chaos Emeralds back into the ether, bringing peace back to South Island and closing out our very first adventures with our Blue Hedgehog. To this day, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 still holds a very special place in my heart. It was the very first of its kind and the very first Sega game I owned and fell in love with as a kid. It's a title that can easily stand on its own merit regardless of the illustrious legacy of sequels that would ultimately define the series. Sonic 1 is a game I can pick up and play still to this day and have a blast doing so. I think for me personally, a great deal of the replay value comes from the excellent core platforming the game is built upon. If you have followed my journey on this channel, you know a majority of the games covered are platformers, and Sonic 1 is as hardcore of a platformer as they come. Although the stages are a bit primitive in comparison to their sequels in design, the stages never feel stale or dated. In fact, from the very beginning, the Sonic series has captivated me through its aesthetics and artistic design choices. Each zone is chock full of vivid colors and unique flair. Although the zones tend to stretch on a bit, with 3 acts in total, they never felt like a chore to play through. Even a stage like Labyrinth Zone can seem as if it goes on forever, yet I think for being an underwater zone, the stage's underlying tones fit perfectly, encapsulating the real feel of the unknown. There was never an act or area that I said to myself, I really hate doing this, or that broke up the gameplay. In fact, after going back and playing through the game again and again as the years go by, I only grow a larger appreciation for it. Where Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 felt flashy and over the top in design choice, Sonic 1 had a bit more of that gritty classic Genesis feel to it that really exemplifies the early hardcore Genesis roots. With the game being re-released and updated over the years, little things like the added spin dash and updated character selections from the Sonic Origins Plus really breathed new life into the game, and I actually played through it twice for this review, once with Sonic and again with Amy. Sonic 1 truly hits me with that nostalgia high. It isn't that one and done experience where years later you may boot it up for 10 minutes or so and say, say, okay, that's enough, on to the next. No, not at all. For me, the moment I pick it up and blast through Green Hill, I instantly arrive at Marble Garden and say, you know what, I got another 10 minutes to spare, and that turns into another hour until I realize I'm at the final moments of the game. The special stages are still some of my personal favorites, and although they aren't everyone's cup of tea, the music and presentation can almost be hypnotic at times. I think they give you just enough challenge. Not painfully difficult, yet if you aren't truly locked in, you're gonna goof up at the worst possible time, slamming into that unexpected bumper, launching you into that bright red goalpost. With Sonic 1 officially in the record books, we can now move forward onto one of Sega's biggest endeavors yet, a game so iconic it doesn't need any introduction. A game that's debatably the best Sonic game of all time. When we return, we will be looking at Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Wait, what? Sonic 1 on Master System? Well, it looks like we might have to make a pit stop before we get there then. There's still a bit more of this story to unfold next time we continue on with Sonic 1 for Game Gear and Sega Master System.